Do trade, bring the goods, manufacture, trade, where your considerable portion of the product is going outside the country.
Since you're dealing with so many people are forming their companies here from all over the world. People from Europe, people from US, people from India, all over the world, they come here and form companies. What are 2 or 3 major mistakes?
I'll not say they form the right company or wrong company, but their objective does not meet the requirement.
One question which I hear from my clients a lot, whether I should buy property in my personal name or I should buy property in the company's name.
Again, both are right answers, and there are both reasons why people want to buy under the corporate structure or under the individual. Just tell me from your perspective, when the clients are inclining towards UAE, what is the first reason and why they want to invest in UAE?
Most of the people are following trend. All my friends are buying property, so I also want to buy a property in Dubai. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are diving into the word behind headlines. How to set up a company in Dubai right way, what compliances matter, and how to stay smart with taxes. Our guest today is CA Rajiv Hira. He is managing partner with RHMC Consultants. He is having more than 25 years of experience in banking, finance, compliances, and taxation. He has not just helped hundreds of people to launch a company, but thrive in UAE. Let's get into it. Hi Rajiv, welcome to our show.
Thanks Jasmeet for having me here.
Let's get started. When somebody wants to launch a company in UAE, what are the questions he should be asking to decide whether he should launch a company in mainland or a free zone or offshore?
I think it's a very interesting question and a lot of people dwell around it. Let me go and give a first framework. Why you want to launch a company is the first question which any investor or any person who want to look at prospects in UAE should look at. There are multiple free zones, we know. There are multiple mainland zones. There are multiple structures which are available. All structures are good structures. None of the structure we can say is good or bad, is not in the giving a good perspective, but definitely defines what you want to do, what you want to achieve in short run versus long run. I think the first thing is we should have in our mind, and I will say document the real roadmap or a business plan divided into broadly 3 factors. 1 year down the line where I want to be, 5 years and 10 years down the line where I want to be. And then look at what's a horizon, what's a clientele, what's a business segment, what's a product, are these a product or a services? What do you want to achieve in a span? I think that's the first question which we always say to the investors or people who want to venture in UAE to look at. And that's a basic and the ground rule to start with.
Rajiv, what's the difference between mainland, offshore, and free zone?
Okay, let's break it into 3 broad parts as you rightly picked it up. Mainland is something where you have a structure in the heart of the land or heart of the city. That means you are allowed to do a lot of businesses where you require a local buying, selling, local transactions. That means the UAE transactions which are required. Since we have 7 Emirates, we have 7 economic zones. So all these are having their own mainland structures. Dubai has its own, Abu Dhabi has its own, Ras Al Khaimah. You name all the Emirates, there are structures. Now the first objective we look at from a mainland perspective is, are your clientele a UAE based clientele? Are you providing services to a UAE based clientele? So that comes as first part or a foremost thing to be looked into. Next comes a free zone structure. Free zone structure, before we talk free zone structure, let's understand why free zone structures were created. So these are technically the area which is brought up by the UAE government to bring the international trade in the UAE land or domain. So geographical area is UAE. However, these businesses are considered to be outside the state from a tax perspective. So technically in various parts of the world, we have seen economic zones or tax economic zones. So this is something like a tax economic zone where you come, do trade, bring the goods, manufacture, trade, where your considerable portion of the product is going outside the country. That is where the free zone benefit comes into play. There are various other factors also. When you're looking at in-country value proposition, also makes a lot of difference whether your trading should be in the mainland or free zone. So there are different custom benefits, there are different tax benefits. When I say tax, includes value-added tax and corporate tax also. Now comes the last leg, which you talked about, offshore. Offshore is again an interesting element. It was quite used a effectively I will use the word corporate tax era, but now I will say the offshore is more used as a asset holding tool than anything else. Why I'm referring this? Because if you are having a trading entity, which is an offshore entity, you will never be able to substantiate the substance in the UAE, and hence you may not get a 0% tax benefit, which maybe we'll talk later why and why not. But definitely offshore is a very interesting tool to hold assets in the book. So a lot of time you must have seen the properties are purchased in the offshore structure, which is, let's say, Javza offshore. So in this, you hold the property, you can transfer the shareholding, although DLD is not waived off, you have to pay the DLD fees. But it becomes, it's a corporate structure, it's a corporate entity. And it gives a lot of advantage when you do that in a structured way. So holding a property, holding a bulk of assets-based activity in offshore is very interesting tool to use for.
Thanks for clarifying, because a lot of investors who come here do not have clarity on which company they should form. So they go by whatever advice they're getting. So somebody will advise them offshore, somebody will advise them a free zone, and later they find themselves in a problem or in a situation where they are looking for a solution also. Okay, so this is very interesting, Rajiv. Rajiv, if somebody comes to UAE and does not want to take consultant route and wants to learn things on his own, is there a way or website or any information where he can access directly?
Definitely multiple places are there. In fact, all free zones have their own websites. They have their call centers, they have their drop email boxes where you can write a specific question to get an answer for. Maximum good free zones have their law library also as part of it. So I think that should be referred to. Second, from a tax perspective, tax.gov.ae is a website where all the legislation, guidance notes are readily available. So you have to just maybe toggle around to the website, maybe 5 minutes, you will understand how the website operates. So these are the two broad things which I will say. And second, we ourselves run a knowledge library in form of a training center, which is FintEdu, FINTEDU.
Yeah, I've attended some of the
sessions. If you look at those websites also, there are a lot of literature which experts are writing up. So example, there is a write-up on how the free zone intricacies can work into. There are transfer pricing documentations, how it should be followed. So all those literatures are there. Yes, you can go through if you have an understanding and a patience to read those documents. Literature is available. I don't think that's a challenge. And UAE economy and UAE government is making it much more transparent as we move along. Today also there was a webinar which was organized by the tax authority on basics of VAT. So that's those knowledge sessions, those websites, those information is available. You had to just follow those links and get into the perspective.
Rajiv, there was a perception about UAE for years, and it was not perception, it was true, that there were no taxes at all in UAE. So I understand back then people were coming and forming companies, getting their businesses here just to save taxes. Now there is a tax, there's a corporate tax, there's a VAT, and there are other things also involved. Is that changing any frame of Dubai's company setup, or it is same?
It's a completely drastic change. One statement I will just maybe highlight that. UAE is not just the tax saving country. That has to be very clearly articulated and understood by everyone. If you want to get a structure here, UAE is an economy we are sitting in the heart of the world. We touch across all the global countries during the working time zones of UAE. We can have the best of the ports. We have the best of the services. We have best of the infrastructure in UAE. So that should be the criteria. So one point which is very important is you need to have a substance in the UAE to get a benefit of a 0% tax. It's no more a country where you can have a briefcase company. You cannot have something like a briefcase company and want to enjoy a 0% taxes. That's straight away no. Because substance, that means when the substance word we use, we talk about resources, we talk about people, we talk about infrastructure, which includes office, your whatever is required to run the business you are running for. So that is becoming the very important part of tax structures or even the structure itself. So Without substance, no zero taxes. Yes, there are good provisions where 0% taxes is applicable. You are in a free zone, you do third port shipment, you bring the goods here, manufacture, supply it outside. All those are 0% tax benefits, which are almost nowhere in the world. So you can get a benefit, but you cannot get the benefit just by setting up a briefcase company.
One question which I hear from my clients a lot is when they want to buy property, the first question which comes to their mind is whether I should buy property in my personal name or I should buy property in the company's name. What would you say on that?
Again, both are right answers, and there are both reasons why people want to buy under the corporate structure or under the individual. So we know the corporate tax has come into UAE, but the good part, it is not taxable in hands of individuals or a natural person. So if I am buying a property in my name, any rental income, any capital gain is not taxable in UAE. However, if I buy a property in the company name, there are corporate structures, there are taxes which are applicable. Still, I will say there is a structure which can be formed where you have a corporate entity. However, you may not be taxed, which is kind of a family foundation, to just name it out. And creating a holding company which is more a passive investment company, and that gives a very good arbitrage or advantage of not getting taxed at the corporate level. Yes, you may be subjected to tax from an individual perspective, but since property is not taxed in individual, you save on that also. So no right wrong answer. I'll give a reason why corporate is important. If you want to create a corporate wheel, that means you don't want individual to be responsible or looking at how the inheritance is going to happen. Corporate structure may be good. But if you have a small family and investment is not a large size, when I say not a large size, 5 million, 6 million is not a large size investment. To spend a considerable amount every year on the company renewal cost, company cost, license cost, compliance cost, doesn't make sense to do so. Better to take the property in the individual name, but definitely ring fence yourself with a local will, which is a UAE will, to make sure that property inheritance is taken care of.
So that brings me to my next question. In fact, I was about to ask you that how important creating a will in UAE is.
Will is important in any part of the world.
I know, but since most of the investors here are expat, they do not belong to this land. They're coming from all over the world and buying assets here. So it becomes even more important for them to have a succession planning. So one succession planning you explained through corporate route. But if somebody does not take that corporate route, is will the most important thing for an individual to have?
I'll say definitely, because look at the framework. I think why we create a will again goes back to the ground question. First, to tell your family I have these assets. I think a lot of time we keep hearing by the central banks of the various world where they say bank accounts are unidentified.
Unclaimed.
So people are not able to claim and go and this is my money, because maybe there is a documentation available, but the person who is ready to inherit it does not know it. So first, make a list of your assets. Make sure your near and dear one who are the beneficiaries, going to be the beneficiaries, know where the assets are. Second, from a local land perspective, you have to create a probate. That means the legal document which will define who is going to take the property once some mishappening happens. So both are very important from a will perspective.
Absolutely.
And in UAE, so one of the important factor which we always recommend and talk about is don't create cross-country wills as far as possible. Because imagine if I have an asset in UAE and I'm creating a will in UK, how the UK government or the legal system is going to create a probate which is going to be effective or affected in UAE. So hence having a country level will, so far it's possible, should be adopted. So UAE assets should have a UAE will. India assets should have an India will. UK assets should have a UK will. So that's how broadly from an individual perspective structure should be designed.
Rajiv, one thing which keeps running on my mind all the time is that how AML, which is anti-money laundering, can impact anyone who set up a company and he's thinking that he's doing the job right way, but unaware he might be doing some mistakes. So what are those things? Can you just throw some light on it?
Perfect. So I think let's take a step back again, as I say. First, what is AML framework or anti-money laundering comes as part of it. So tax evasion is one of the element which is being brought into. Two, where you are picking up the money which is not legitimately earned and convert it into the economy or bring up as part of assets. This get very tightly controlled, or you can say tightly linked with the foreign exchange regulations also of the various countries. Since we are talking India in a various examples, I'll just pick up India as an example.
Yeah.
India has two remittance schemes for sending the money from India to foreign country. One under LRS and ODI. In both the schemes, there are thresholds which are being defined by the regulator that you can withdraw or you can transfer up to this value to the foreign country. Now, this has to be registered with the authorized representative from an India perspective, which is technically banks, so authorized agents. Now, if you have brought up a property in UAE and you have backup documents stating that my money is being moved from India through the LRS or ODI as the case is applicable, and you have a document in place, it's perfectly fine. Now imagine that documentation at the back is not available, especially for people who are not non-resident Indians. Example, you are in UAE for a couple of years now, so you are earning money in UAE and you are buying any property or any transaction from that money earned is perfectly fine. But if you are not a UAE resident as now, and you bring the money of, let's say, 1 million, 2 million, whatever value you're buying a property, and you don't have a backup supporting documents from India perspective, then there is a compliance failure.
Right.
How that money has been brought up into the country. So going back and touching one more aspect which touches into what is the source of fund through which money is being brought up into the UAE for buying the property, or even setting up a structure from a company perspective. Company becomes little more important and complicated, because in that case, you have to do annual reporting also in India, how the company is growing, how the structure is increasing or profit is getting earned, or maybe losses are happening. Not that every business will make a profit. There can be losses, but it should be legitimate. It should be reported to the local regulator, in this case, RBI from India perspective. Those things become very important. If you are breaching any of these things, we are getting into the framework of PMLA from India perspective and AML from UAE perspective. And I keep connecting the dots on corporate tax and AML. So both has to marry and match also. One very interesting example which came up in one of the conversation. Imagine I'm buying a property of 3 million in UAE. What is the source of fund, how the money is moving in? We are not getting into that to make it more simple. But we expect the regulator, which will ask a question, whether this is a capital repatriation from the country where you came, or it is a money earned in UAE. Either of the thing has to happen. Now imagine we are sitting in 2025 where corporate tax is implemented, and being an individual, I purchased a property of 3 million. Either I have to show the source of fund, that means I repatriated money from my home country.
Or I've earned it here.
Or I've earned it here. If I've earned it here and it was my, let's say, bank balance in 2024 end, then that's fine. This is earned in the previous year. But if I earned in 2025, since I don't have a balance,
taxes or no?
Now the question comes, had I paid taxes or not? For individual, there is a threshold of 1 million, which is exempt. Beyond that, you need to pay taxes. Yes, there are three incomes which are not taxable. One is salary. Can I prove it to be a salary? I don't have any salary contract. Second, real estate income.
Rental.
Can I prove it to be a rental or a capital gain? Maybe I don't have. Can I prove it to be investment income? Maybe I don't have a proof of investment in the stock market or anything. So if none of these are there,
I have all the answers, then it is fine.
Perfect. So source has to be clearly articulated for what is a capital repatriation and how the source of income is being earned. If it is there, you are perfectly aligned. If not, then we are getting into the wrong side of the law from an AML perspective.
How compliances are shaping up in UAE? I'm sure with global markets getting open for UAE, people are coming from all over the world and opening companies here, setting up companies here, creating structures here, and some of them are cross-country structures as well. Somebody is having a company in India, wants to open a subsidiary here. Having a company in US, wants to open a subsidiary here. So how much that compliance is shaping up is something which I think most of the people should know that what they're getting into.
So I can say I promote people not to come to this country if they're not ready for a compliance. That's a tough point.
I've seen that. I've seen you doing that with many people. Yeah.
But I keep pushing people that don't set up a structure just for the sake of a structure, because there is a cost of compliance which you need to look at. There is a time and energy which is going to be flowed into when you set up a structure here. So look at a very simple thing. If you are creating example, as you picked up a very good analogy where Indian entities opening a subsidiary in UAE, you are touching now two regulations. You're not touching only UAE
India
regulation.
and UAE both.
You're touching India regulation from a foreign exchange perspective. Whatever name we call FEMA or various part of the country has different regulations. And you are touching UAE from an inward side. Now, since there are corporate taxes, there are data sharing happening between the countries, it is good to be on dot and aligned from a compliance perspective. Yes, it is expensive. It is time consuming. Yes, it is taxing. But from a long run perspective and to be on the right side of the law, it's important to start from the day one rather than getting surprises after maybe a year or two that we missed on these aspects. A lot of time we have seen people set up a company through the corporate service providers or through the agents, and then they assume that all those actions further which are required will be taken care of. No, that's not going to be.
It's a regular
You need to have your own structure. You need to have your own understanding. Either you hire someone full-time or you outsource those activities, which is fine. But you need to look at a compliance. And compliances are becoming, I'll say, I'm not using a word large, but becoming more organized and structured in the UAE part. Ultimate beneficial owner was brought up as a regulation. Now we can't onboard an account even unless we know the proper KYC of the clients who are behind that, or the people who are real investors. So that becomes a part of a norm now. Banks have started taking information related to who are the UBOs, who are the people who are behind the company. So all those regulations, these are technically a common sense, if I just talk about. But this has been brought up into the regulation, and the banks, the financial institution, DNFPPs are required to now comply to those things. So this is one part on execution. Then comes your tax structures. You may be an excisable product item using it. You may be VAT required to be registered. You may be, corporate tax is anyway mandatory for everyone to register at least. Yes, there is a benefit for people who are having a top line of less than 3 million, that they can take a small business relief. But for that also you need to file a relief. It is not automatic. So you need to register from a corporate tax perspective. You need to file your returns, take a benefit. Yes, till 2026, there is a benefit given to the entities which are having a turnover of less than 3 million. But definitely you need to have management accounts at least if you are not taking a free zone benefit or your turnover is not more than the threshold where audit is required.
Right.
So all those actions are quite a good actions, and quite a structured way is required to adopt it. And just tell me from your perspective, when the clients are inclining towards UAE, what is the first reason and why they want to invest in UAE?
So I'll tell you, this is a very interesting question, and I really wanted to answer this. Most of the people do not have reason to invest in Dubai.
Okay.
And especially for real estate. Most of the people are following trend. That my cousin has bought a property in UAE. My friend has bought a property in UAE. A recent example is that half an hour back, I got a call from somebody in US saying that I want to buy property in UAE, Dubai. I said, why do you want to? I said, what is the intent? What's the purpose? He said, no, I don't know. All my friends are buying property, so I also want to buy a property in Dubai. Now, these are the people who do not have a clear intent, clear reason why they're getting into. Here, I tell everyone that give me two things. Well, number one, the intent, the reason. Why do you want to invest in Dubai? That is the very first answer I ask everyone. Sometimes people do feel offended also that why are you asking it? I'm saying I want to invest. Invest. I say I don't want to do it because I do not only want to buy and sell property for you. I want to be your journey partner for next 20 years or 10 years. So if you do not have purpose clear today, you'll make a loss 100%. For people who have a clear purpose that why are they investing in Dubai? Number one, I'm sure I don't need to reiterate about golden visa and so on and so forth. The most important thing is the property gives you a high rental yield in Dubai. And that's a given fact across globe. you can check any economy. Here, rental yields are very, very high. Somebody who's looking at a stable income, he's investing here. But then what property are you buying also becomes very important. Are you buying a real asset, or you're just investing in something because you just want to enter UAE market? So that's not what I advise. I advise them, please have a clear asset in mind, that what asset do you want to buy, and then let's get into the property discussion, because it's a secondary. Property is a secondary discussion. The primary discussion is the reason that why you want to get here. So it's I know that I lose some clients sometimes, but I'm happy doing it, because the clients who stay with me, they will stay with me for at least next generation, not just 10, 20 or 15 years.
I think it's an interesting point. That is the most important factor which comes into intent behind your investment or your property buying should be very clear.
Absolutely, yes.
Because if that is not clear, I think the roadmap also will become quite hazy and dicey.
And then the most asked question, which I asked you as well, is that whether I should buy property in my personal name or my company's name. Now here also I tell them that if you have an intent of running a business, then it makes sense to get into a company structure. If you're just buying one property and intent is to earn rental, I don't think that you should be spending money on licenses and renewals and all of it. You buy property in your individual name and you can continue. Rajiv, this also brings me to one more question. I know that you also advise a lot of HNIs and family offices. How is their investing in a company or in UAE different than any other investor? Is there a different tax structure for HNIs and family offices?
Definitely. The family office is very different structure. UAE government has given an amazing great amount of incentive for our family offices.
Okay.
They are calling family offices as transparent structures.
Okay.
To give a very simple thing, you have a company which is in kind of a foundation or a family office. Any income which is earned get transparently transferred to the beneficiaries. And in the hands of beneficiaries, these are getting taxed.
Okay.
There are certain conditions to be followed. Tax authority has to be appraised and taken a pre-approval also that you are going to take a transparent structure benefit. That's amazingly well run, and it's a go-to, I will use the word, aspect for all family offices in UAE. Some people have done it, some are on the way to do it. And the transparent structure technically gives you a benefit of no corporate tax, apart from multiple benefits because your inheritance is getting corporatized. So you have a corporate structure where people can be managing some of the assets, and still you are not getting taxed from a corporate tax perspective. But the objective is not to save the taxes. Objective is majorly to make sure that your structure is in such a fashion that the beneficial owners, in future, the family inheritance and the family transfer of assets is more seamless than anything else.
Rajiv, I know that you have clients from Australia, US, Canada, India, all these places. So how do you keep up with these countries' laws as well? See, I'm sure that sitting in UAE, you have a lot of information available for UAE. But I'm sure that when these clients, they come from all over the places, they want you to give them advice about the taxation which is applicable in their country and taxation which is applicable in UAE, and merging both of them. So how do you keep up with all the countries across the globe?
So we have to create a line between what advice we can give and what comments we can provide. So a lot of places where we have a cross-country transactions or there is a discussion, we always give our view and we recommend the client to take a secondary view or the final say from their country perspective, from a tax angle perspective. We generally don't give a cross-country both side views. Yes, we give our commentary subject to validation by the local tax agent or a tax individual from those countries' perspective. Yes, once we understand, we are sometimes more confident than not to give the advice, but we are not experts in all the countries, and we don't intend to call ourselves self-expert for those countries also.
Rajiv, I meet 10 people in a day, and out of those 10, 8 will say that I have a company in UAE. So somebody will say I have a trading company, somebody will say I have a consultancy company. So almost anyone and every meet, and I'm not talking about only in UAE. When I travel outside UAE as well, whether I go to Australia, I go to US, I go to England, I go to India, people do talk that I have a company back in Dubai. Sometimes it surprises and amazes me. So many people opening companies here. Are they all making profits?
UAE has gained a very good momentum from the global world perspective. Very good banking infrastructure, as I said, very good ports, very good social infrastructure, very good economic infrastructure, and even the personal life of people have grown up considerably well in last 5 to 10 years is what we can talk about. So moving people here in UAE and staying and doing business is one part, and I definitely see people are growing. Everyone cannot grow the way things are, but yes, there is a growth, there are prospects, and people can enjoy that. However, just creating a company in UAE, which no more is possible also, and operationally not feasible also, because banks are doing a lot of control, auditors are validating the question, tax authorities are asking about substance. So it may not be very feasible for non-substance companies to survive for a long. If they have survived so far, maybe next couple of years they have to either come into the substance or they will lose the structure itself.
So you say that the company should have substance, they should have a business which is running, there should be a goods or service which is either being sold or being provided to the consumer to make money out of it. So if it is not happening, then it's not business.
So that's the reason we say people don't look at a company formation cost. Look at the annual cost of setting up infrastructure, people, resources in UAE to run the business. And that's where you make the money.
Absolutely. Let's say somebody has created a company here, has never filed taxes, has never followed any compliances because maybe he was not aware of. Not that intentions were wrong, but he never followed compliances or he never filed taxes. What is the best way to clean it up?
You have to come to the board, start doing the right thing, what is required. Let's say if license is not renewed, you need to renew it. If corporate tax is not being registered, UAE government was very kind enough to give the waiver for 10,000 dirhams penalty if people have not registered for corporate tax, subject to they file their return within 7 months.
Okay.
So if those things are done, there are instances where you may have fines and you have to bear it up. And there are instances where benefits are getting derived. Take those benefits, clean up the structure. If you don't want that, liquidate it properly and close the structure rather than leaving it for a natural death. There is nothing natural death. It starts getting into a foul smell, which is much more dangerous than spending the cost at this stage.
Because a lot of people from Western world, and I don't want to name the countries, but a lot of people from Western world, they feel that if we don't want to continue the business, it will die naturally.
There's nothing called a natural death now. Since the taxes have come, the company is live unless we officially liquidate it. And not liquidating is the biggest mistake which people do because liquidation cost is there, but it is quite less than what non-compliance issues we may face at a later stage.
Rajiv, you came here much earlier than most of us. I just came 3-4 years back and you're here since 2013. And what was the reason that you made a choice to stay in Dubai and not move to any other part of the world? You worked in US. I know that you worked in many other countries as well before coming to Dubai. You had option to go to any part of the world and settle. Why did you choose Dubai to live in?
First of all, I worked in Africa continent and Middle East region. So that was my playing ground and Asian market. That's the 3 places where the playing ground was there. UAE being, I'll say, it's a very socio-economic structure. Very familiar to my home country, very near to my home country. And it was not, I will say, a choice, but as a flow, it happened in such a fashion that you glued into the country. And that's what I always say, anyone who comes as a tourist for 2 times to this country and stays in the country, not going to, I'm not referring to the tourist spots, but looking at the country, you get hooked into and you get attracted to this country to work and stay here for a longer period.
Yeah, we all are victim to that. If somebody is thinking of setting up a company in 2025 with things changing so fast, what is one big piece of advice to all our viewers you have?
One thing I will say, don't buy the services free of cost. So I think that's the most important part we have seen. People come here, look for shopping with various people, understanding bits and pieces and then taking a decision. So it's better to stick to any one person, consultant or any advisor you are looking at, get the structure properly vetted. Spend a good amount over there. When I say good amount, I'm not saying you have to spend thousands and thousands, but pay for that services and take a proper professional advice to take a decision of what you want to do.
A price of a consultant will cost you lesser than the surprise you're going to face in the future.
See, the challenge which we see right now, and maybe a lot of other places also, people are not ready for paying for the services, but they are ready for the goods. So when they see the license, they pay for that, but not for the pre-services. I'm referring to the pre-services. Don't even set up any structure unless you're clear on what structure, why, what are the tax benefits, what are the compliance requirements are on your table.
Thank you. I think that's a big advice, because most of the people who are coming here, they look for a free consultancy first of all, and they do not want to pay, while they pay price very heavily later.
I'm not referring to my services.
No,
so it's not selling about myself.
We're not talking about you. I'm talking about general.
Correct.
Generally, that when we meet people around, people who come here, and a lot of people are just doing shopping here.
Correct.
Because they've just heard it. They have not experienced it.
Correct.
Rajiv, taxation is a very new subject in UAE. I think July 2023 was the first time when taxation was introduced in UAE. Now, what are the broad things one should take care or one should understand about taxation in UAE?
So I'll maybe split it into various smaller parts. One, from a taxation perspective, be ready for a 9%. That's a one point which.
But there's an exemption of 375,000 dirham of profit, and then
Correct.
beyond that is 9%.
So on a threshold basis, $100,000 or 375,000 dirhams is subject to 0% tax, and beyond that, it's a 9% tax from a income perspective. So the tax is on the income. That is one point which comes into. Second, make sure you have a substance in the country.
Right.
That means having right resources, right people, right infrastructure. No more briefcase offices will survive, or you can say thrive in this market. And the third foremost thing comes is choose the right zones. So if you're choosing the right free zone, which is required to do the business, you may get a benefit of a 0% tax.
Okay.
I'm using a word may with quite a cautious thing, because there are a lot of action points which need to be completed to get a 0% benefit. Example, if someone is in a trading business, he does a lot of third port shipment, buying from one country, selling to other country, and you have all the resources here. If you're not in a so-called designated zone, although you're doing everything as a tick box right, you may not get a benefit of a 0% tax.
Okay.
So choose the right zone from a tax perspective. So these are broad factors which need to be looked into. And taxes are quite, I will use the word law is quite easy to get into perspective, but the way we do business, the way transactions are executed are quite complicated. So when you mix up both, that's where the answer comes into play to understand whether you are going to be taxed or not, but be prepared. And 9% is not a higher taxes in comparison to any market.
Not at all. So what I understand is that law is very clear and law is very transparent as well. But for people to get into the transaction and the complicated ones, sometimes they miss on, maybe, or they overlook, not miss, but sometimes they overlook small things which can cost them very dear in future. If at all, they just follow the simple, as you use the word, commonsensical practice, I think that can save them from a lot of hassles in future.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Rajiv, one thing is for sure that I gained a lot of knowledge about the offshore, the mainland and free zone companies, because this is the question which is being asked to me every day by everyone. A lot many times I refer things to you, Rajiv, please tell me the client is asking this and client is asking that and all of it. But I think people, when they come to Dubai or when they come to UAE, this basic concept understanding is very important for them.
Correct.
And for that, they need somebody like you who can guide them to walk through the entire process. Also, I want to understand, since you're dealing with so many people are forming their companies here from all over the world. People from Europe, people from US, people from India, all over the world, they come here and form companies. What are 2 or 3 major mistakes these people are doing while forming a company?
So I'll give a perspective. So we are more into structuring discussions than the formations discussion. If someone comes to us, says that we want to form a company, we normally step back. because company formation is an easy task. You can go and get the company structure done by anyone, company formed by anyone. But when it comes to structuring, why is a question which we talked about. Why you want to form a company in UAE? What is your short-term stroke long-term objective? And what do you want to achieve with those objectives? Are you creating a value proposition? Are you looking at tax arbitrage with various countries, which is also a structured discussion which we are talking about? So it becomes very important how you structure that entity so that you don't end up getting surprises at a later stage. However, as you rightly say, a lot of people are looking for surprises, and I'll not say they form the right company or wrong company, but their objective does not meet the requirement which they want to achieve in the life.
Thank you, Rajiv, for being with us on this show today. It was very learning, very informative, and I can take so many things back from this show today. Thanks for teaching me all.
Thanks, Asmeet, for bringing up this topic. I think it's important and very need of an hour, I'll say, for everyone.
Thank you, viewers. So this was from Mr. Rajiv Hira. I'm sure it was as informative for you as it was for me. Keep following for more videos like this.